So today is finally the day. Not only do I finally get to show off my stubby mousepad, but also do I finally get to review the LAMZU Maya after procrastinating for ages. The Maya was definitely one of the very most hyped mice in 2023, but sadly it just didn't turn out to be what we expected. And if you want to know what I mean by that, definitely stick and watch the whole video. But before we do that, I wanted to mention that only around 20% of you guys are actually subscribed, so if you're at all interested in peripheral enthusiast reviews, definitely go hit the sub button and the bell right next to it. And as a disclaimer, LAMZU did indeed send this mouse out to me at release, so this is also a first batch unit, but as always, that doesn't affect my opinion about the mouse whatsoever. And thank you LAMZU for sending out these units. Getting into the not so boring stuff, the unboxing experience is very premium. Not only do you get to read a text on why Veil of Maya is the best metalcore band out there, but also do you get a USB-A to USB-C cable as always. The cable is pretty darn stiff, and so am I. You get a sticker to cover up the bottom of your mouse, a dongle that is colored in the color of your mouse as well, some obsidian skates. They're not the official X-ray pad obsidians, but I can assure you that they are insanely similar and probably from the same factory, and also some decent BTL V2 type grips. Of course, as always, there's also a 1K dongle included, and this 4K dongle you would have to buy separately. The only LAMZU mouse that comes with a 4K dongle included is actually the Fnatic Foreign. Other than that, you always have to buy this one separately for around $13 to $14 if I remember correctly. Also, can we please agree on that this is the worst dongle design that there has ever been? In terms of the QC, I have absolutely no issues in terms of flexing, side wobbling, anything like that. It is rock freaking solid. There is one weird thing about the scroll that I will touch on later though. Now, getting into the shape. It is not a real claw grip mouse. This mouse is very much center humped and a bit flat towards the rear. So the grips that I would actually recommend for this mouse would be a fingertip grip. And if you do an aggressive claw grip, my hands that are 19 by 10 are on the fucking edge. The way that I play with my mouse, my finger ends up here and I'm absolutely edging that mouse one button. And per typical LAMZU, my ring finger and pinky finger start hurting after a while because they have still kept their tapered sides. Now, the tapered sides aren't as horrible as on an Atlantis Mini, where my thumbnail was literally a hand that was dying. And I really did feel like my fingers were gonna fall off after 1 hour of usage with my Atlantis Mini and my aggressive claw grip. And sadly, the LAMZU Maya has this similar issue. And because this mouse is pretty darn short, I would only recommend it for people with 18 by 10 hands or smaller, unless you play a fingertip grip. If you play fingertip grip, you can obviously use it with larger hands. But especially for a relaxed claw grip, I would not use this with 19 by 10. Only smaller. Since the shape is pretty unique, I will give you some comparisons. In terms of the overall size, it is pretty darn similar to the AJ199, which is also the same exact ODM as the Attack Shark X3. These mice are both pretty darn short, but the AJ is definitely a tiny bit thinner. And that is also one thing that makes the Maya a tiny bit weird. For being this short of a mouse, it is actually sort of wide, especially coming from the OP18K. But then again, that is a whole different story with how narrow this mouse is. For an aggressive claw grip, I do actually prefer the AJ199 shape, mainly because the sides aren't so tapered as on the Maya. When comparing it to even the Hadias Plus, the Maya is definitely overall smaller. When I do my aggressive claw grip, my fingers are on the very edge of the mouse here towards the front, and on the Hadias Plus, I just do not have that issue at all, mainly because there's just so much more support for that claw grip in the back, and because these sides are much flatter and not nearly as tapered as on the Maya here on the OP18K, it is just that much more comfortable for me to use. When I used the Maya for the first time ever whilst I was streaming, I just couldn't really deal with the shape. It took me around 3 to 4 days to really get used to this shape and actually be able to use it comfortably. So if you're still interested in getting the Maya and you are first getting it, definitely take some days to actually get used to the shape. This is just one of those mice, mainly because their design language is just that awkward over at LAMZU. And now comes the part that I want to do a little rant about LAMZU's shapes. Whilst the Foreign was definitely a great success, especially for claw grip, even though it also is quite an awkward shape, even even as Borsey would describe it. Their symmetrical mice just always have this one weird aspect to it. Now, a fellow reviewer friend of mine, Yifang, actually went over to visit them. The owner, Frank, does not play any video games, but their designer actually does. But the thing is, they have one designer designing their shapes, and the issue in my eyes is just that they don't field test their shapes, they don't do any R&D together with other reviewers or pro players, so they just end up with this shape that this one Chinese guy designed that perhaps suits him very well, and then everybody just has to deal with it. And these tapered sides on all of the LAMZU mice that are symmetrical are a perfect example on that. I would highly recommend LAMZU to do more field testing with their shapes, get input before they mass produce them instead of just drawing something in CAD and then sending it off to the factory instantly. If they would actually do that, LAMZU could take over the entire market because they are factory owned. They can do anything that they want. When they first actually made their Twitter account, they constantly asked for feedback on switches and colors and all sorts of stuff over on Twitter, and I wish that they could do similar stuff with these shapes in the future. Getting into the coding, my first batch is very rubbery, and I don't have any issues with it at all personally because I have very dry hands, and as soon as my hands get warm in my very dry environment, it just fucking grips. I've heard that the coding is now a bit more chalky on the newer copies and much more similar to the foreign, though that is just an upgrade in my personal opinion. In terms of the buttons, these retooled blue shell pink dots that they have, because they've been working together with Wano, they are the best implemented blue shell pink dots that I've ever felt. They are super duper crisp and just feel insanely high quality. Honestly, they are so tactile that I almost mistook them for TTC Golds in the beginning. But yeah, the click implementation is probably my favorite so far in terms of mechanical switches. I could see it being a tiny bit too heavy for those people who prefer light switches. The side buttons do have a bit of pre-travel and also a bit of post-travel, but in-game it is not an issue at all. I don't really think that these side buttons are too spammable on my copy though, so maybe Fortnite players wouldn't enjoy these too much. The scroll itself is pretty darn silent and it has these defined steps, but yeah, it's nothing crazy. It doesn't feel cheap, so I'm fine with it. Mouse free is also fine, it's not too heavy, but now we get into the real issue with this scroll. The rubber band on this scroll wheel is super squishy. You can like completely press into it because it has this hollow space underneath the rubber band. Now, this is not an issue on other LAMZU mice except for the Fnatic Foreign because it uses that same new scroll design or band or whatever, but it just feels ass. Every single time I've put this into somebody's hand and they click the scroll, they were like, ew, what the fuck? So LAMZU, please make sure that the space underneath the rubber band is not hollow and that it is completely firm, just like the scroll band on the foreign. In terms of these skates, sadly, my copy came with these obsidian type skates and they were not as good as the normal stock LAMZU skates. I guess they just really wanted that all red look all across, including these skates, and that's why they went for them on this red version. I really disagree with that. I hope that they had just chosen the normal stock LAMZU skates. I'm not saying that there is a real issue with them, it's just like, why fix something that isn't broken? If you get any other color that isn't red, you won't have that issue. And if you do have this copy with the red skates, I would just recommend to use them and only replace them if you see an issue with them. The difference between these and core pads isn't that insane. In terms of the battery life, it wasn't too great on 4K, as with most mice these days. I did have to charge it around after 2 to 3 days, but that is just to be expected with 4K. In terms of the 4K polling rate, I'll yet again leave the testing up to the professionals. I didn't have any issues with the 4K implementation at all in the games that I play, and the dongle being available at around $13 is very fairly priced, especially compared to others who price their 4K dongles at $20 or more. In terms of the software, it is yet again very easy to pair your mouse. Just follow the guides that are on the 4K dongle packaging itself. Inside of the software, you obviously can change your debounce time, change your DPI stages, put it to 4K Hertz once you've paired your dongle, set it to peak performance for sure, change the liftoff distance depending on what skates you use, and the awesome thing is that you can update everything right in here in the software. And here you can also pair your 4K dongle. When it comes to my personal opinion about the mouse, I obviously am not the biggest fan of the shape. If I had to do changes to the shape to actually make it really good, I would make it about 5% longer longer, I would make these sides not so freaking tapered, and then this mouse would actually kind of slap, not gonna lie, especially for relaxed claw grip, because the hump is pretty mellow and it's center humped. So I could see this being a really good shape, and we'll see what it's gonna be like on the new LAMZU Tachi that is very similar in the outlines. So hopefully that will be a better Maya. But then again, magnesium cheese graters aren't for everyone, but they did make these screw holes accessible, and their main switches will be hot swap, and also these sides are solid on the Tachi. So we'll see what that's gonna be like. Now to my conclusion, who is this mouse for? If you have around 19 by 10, smaller or even slightly larger hands, for fingertip grip, I could definitely see this being a great choice. Just always remember that it has these tapered sides, and if you don't fuck with tapered sides, don't get this thing. For an aggressive claw grip, I would not recommend this for 19 by 10 hands. I would recommend it for 18 by 10 or below, and for especially a relaxed claw grip, I would also only recommend it for 18 by 10 or below as well, just because the mouse does feel that short because of that very mellow center hump. In terms of the pricing, sitting at around $90, obviously it is a great choice for this insane quality that the LAMZU manufacturer provides, and that is also the reason that LAMZU has that freaking much potential and could completely take over the entire mouse market if they just did more with their shapes and did some more field testing and R&D. They already completely nailed base plates. The only thing you could do better than this would be a reverse mounted PCB that is screwed into the top shell structure. They also use the PCB as a rigidity structure, and the overall engineering is pretty nuts on this thing compared to most mice on the market these days. So I just really hope that they can take that extra step and do some freaking awesome mice in the future. If you want a medium-sized, relaxed, or aggressive claw grip mouse, I can definitely recommend the VXE R1, but definitely do note that this is a bit bigger than the Maya. In the overall width, the difference is noticeable, but in hand it doesn't even feel that much bigger. It just feels a bit more wide, and it has more room for those 19 by 10 or even 20 by 10 aggressive claw grips. And at around $19 for the SE version and around $35 for this F1 Pro version that I have with this really solid coating, I can definitely recommend this if this doesn't sound like something that you would enjoy. I'm also only giving you these recommendations because that is what I would purchase if I had to make a decision, and I don't have any affiliate links for any of these products. Other than that, that's about it for this video. If you're enjoying the content so far, definitely make sure to subscribe and especially hit that notification bell to be notified of all of my new reviews. And I'll see you guys very soon. Peace out.